I wouldn't be against learning the theories that I could put into practice if I had to. In one of my videos about, I think it was either the I identify as Gen X even though I'm Gen Z, or why other past generations think that the new ones are softer. I got a comment about older skills, and I said something about whether how some older skills might actually be useful despite not being used in day-to-day life, even though no, they can be useful in certain situations, but not day-to-day life, and they're still useful to have, even if you're not using the daily, like reading maps. I happen to be pretty good at reading maps myself based on my experience playing video games. Now, I do use the Maps app, the Apple Maps app, quite a bit, usually for like planning ahead and such. Like when I was planning the Rocky Horror Picture Show full body cast experience on Halloween, I used the Maps app to figure out how far away the Boston Common was from the Museum of Science so that I could plan my walk accordingly. And I used it to follow directions to get there on foot. Now, don't quote me on this, but I'd say I could do pretty well with a paper map if it came down to it, because it doesn't really seem that complicated between that and video games, like with game maps and such. I'm pretty sure if I had a paper map from the Museum of Science to the Boston Common, I'd be able to just figure out which streets to follow and where to turn. Maybe I wouldn't know all the tips and tricks that people who go down those roads day to day know. Maybe I wouldn't be able to account for unforeseen roadblocks, but I feel I could still use the paper map to figure out where I am, assuming it's up to date and all that. In response to that, I was also asked if I knew how to drive a manual transmission that's for cars. I do not know how to do that, and considering I don't drive, I wouldn't be against learning the theories that I could put into practice if I had to. I would argue that it's still use that if you drive, it's still useful to know manual transmission just in case you're put in a situation where you kind of have to. And I'm not talking about like renting a car, because you can probably request an automatic trans. You know what? Maybe if you have to rent a car and they only have manual transmissions, it's useful to know. It's ma- it's, it's also useful in a societal collapse if you happen to come across one that you could use to get from one part of the wasteland to the next part. But that being said, assuming that had happened way further in the future, I don't know if there would even be that many manual transmission cars left. Or even if it happened right now, there wouldn't be any you wouldn't have anything to worry about. Most cars would be when I say that, I mean most cars are automatic at this point, therefore, if say, hey, society collapsed right now and then at whatever point after it was officially over and it was just a lawless wasteland, you'd have plenty of automatic cars to put to use. I wouldn't worry too much about I wouldn't worry too much about it at that point. And let's say it was a Mad Max situation and we ran out of gasoline. I don't think it would really matter at that point. Yes, it would be useful to be able to drive a manual transmission if you have to. Like if you happen to come across a working one in a collapse situation, but day to day, you're not going to be able to put it to use. You know what? I might actually read up on the theory, like how to, just for the sake of knowing it, just in case. Again, if society collapses, you probably have more important things to worry about. Though it would be helpful to know it for the sake of being able to get into to drive a car away to save your life. And also reading paper maps would also be a useful skill. Of course, assuming you're able to figure out where you are in the first place. But you know what? I think I'm going to leave it here for the video because those are really the only two skills that I can think of. Reading a paper map and driving a manual transmission car. Both of them can be quite useful. Even if not in day to day life, they can still be put to use in critical situations. So, on that note, I'm going to leave it here for the video. You comment down below if you think it's useful to know these skills, even if they're not used day to day or anything like that. Give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos, and I will see you soon.